Old Harry. The quiet life begins. Old Harry's wooden house stood nestled deep in the forest, far from the nearest village or any busy road. The trees around it were tall and ancient, their branches forming a thick canopy that filtered the sunlight into soft golden patches on the mossy ground. The house itself was small, built long ago with rough-hewn logs, its roof sagging just a little under the weight of time. A narrow porch ran along the front, with a few faded rocking chairs where Harry sometimes sat, watching the quiet world around him. Despite his bent back and grumpy expression, Harry was a man who found comfort in the slow rhythm of life here. Every morning, like clockwork, he rose early, his joints complaining as he pushed himself out of bed. The first thing he did was stoke the fire in the old stone hearth to chase away the night's chill. His breath came out in soft clouds as he opened the door, stepping into the fresh forest air. In the yard, his chickens clucked and scratched at the dirt, searching for worms and seeds, while the goats munched lazily on the rough grass near the garden's edge. Harry had raised these animals for years. They were his family now. They didn't speak much, of course, but their company was enough. Today was no different from any other. Harry wrapped his thick woolen coat around his thin frame, laced up his worn boots, and grabbed his basket. It was time to collect herbs, a daily task he took seriously. Sage, thyme, and a few handfuls of chamomile grew in the sunny patches near the creek, and Harry used them for teas and poultices to soothe his aching muscles. As he walked through the forest, the sounds of nature surrounded him. The rustling of leaves, the distant call of a woodpecker, the faint buzzing of bees moving between wildflowers. The scent of pine and damp earth filled his lungs. This was his world, quiet and steady. Harry hummed a tune he'd invented long ago, a simple melody that floated through the trees like a gentle breeze. He liked to think the forest understood him, even if no one else did. Harry crouched down by a small patch of sage, his fingers brushing over the soft, silvery leaves. The coolness of the herbs against his skin brought a strange comfort, as if the forest itself was offering a quiet embrace. Suddenly, a soft voice whispered, "Harry." He froze mid-reach, his breath catching. The voice was clear, gentle, and unmistakably human. Harry's eyes darted around, but all he saw were trees and the dappled sunlight. "Who's there?" he muttered, standing slowly. The voice came again, this time a little closer and more urgent. "Harry." Harry's heart pounded. He blinked hard, wondering if his mind was playing tricks. Was the loneliness finally getting to him? He looked down at the chicken pecking near his boots. It tilted its head and clucked softly. "Did you just speak?" Harry whispered, his voice cracking. The chicken clucked again, in a way that almost sounded like a yes. Harry laughed, shaking his head. "Must be the herbs," he said to himself, "or just an old man hearing things." But then, as he moved toward the goats, he heard a soft, bleating voice. "Good morning, Harry. Fancy some fresh grass?" Harry stopped in his tracks. One of the goats looked up, eyes bright and knowing. The voice was clear in his mind, gentle and friendly. He rubbed his eyes, took a deep breath, and looked around again. The forest was still. The sun was still shining through the leaves, and yet somehow the animals were talking. Just to him. Harry chuckled, a dry, amused sound. "Well, I'll be damned." Harry stood still for a moment, trying to make sense of what he'd just heard. Talking animals. That was the sort of thing children dreamed about, not grumpy old men deep in the forest. The chickens clucked again, this time in a way that sounded almost like a chuckle. The goats bleated softly, as if sharing a secret. Even the birds in the trees seemed to be watching him with curious eyes. "All right then," Harry muttered, stroking his beard. "If you're going to talk, you'd better make yourselves useful." He bent down to gather some thyme, his fingers trembling slightly. The forest felt alive in a new way, every sound carrying a hint of meaning. As Harry walked back to his porch with a full basket, he couldn't help but smile. Maybe this strange gift wasn't so bad after all. Back at the house, the animals followed him like old friends, chatting quietly among themselves. Harry poured himself a cup of herbal tea, sat down in his favorite rocking chair, and listened. "Funny thing, Harry," said one of the chickens with a sly tone, "you're not as alone as you think." Harry laughed, the sound warm and genuine. For the first time in a long while, he felt a spark of something new. Hope, perhaps. Chapter 2. Clifford's Visit. A few days had passed since the animals had started talking, and Harry was slowly getting used to their company. Mornings were no longer silent affairs, but filled with gentle chatter and occasional jokes. The forest seemed a little less lonely. One crisp morning, as the leaves were turning gold and red, Harry heard the familiar crunch of footsteps on the forest path. He squinted toward the gate and saw a figure approaching, his old friend Clifford from the nearby village. Clifford was younger than Harry, with a lively smile and bright eyes. Despite their differences, Harry's quiet, grumpy nature and Clifford's talkative, cheerful spirit, their friendship had lasted decades. "Harry," Clifford called out, waving a hand, "I brought some fresh bread and cheese. Thought you might like a visit." Harry grunted, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "Come on in, Clifford. You're just in time." As Clifford stepped onto the porch, the chickens clucked excitedly and the goats bleated greetings. Harry noticed the surprise on Clifford's face, but said nothing. "Seems like your little farm's more lively than usual," Clifford remarked, eyeing the animals. Harry shrugged. "You might say that." Inside, the two men settled by the fire, sharing stories and laughter. Clifford's presence was like a warm breeze, breaking through Harry's usual solitude. As the fire crackled softly, Harry and Clifford fell into their familiar rhythm of teasing and storytelling. Clifford poured himself a cup of tea, eyeing Harry with a knowing grin. "So, Harry," Clifford began, "I heard some strange rumors in the village. Talking animals? That's a new one, even for you." Harry gave a crooked smile. "Don't laugh too loud, Clifford." "It's true, only I can hear them, though." Clifford raised an eyebrow. "Come on, Harry, are you sure it's not the herbs or your imagination?" Harry shook his head. No, they're real. The chickens, the goats, even the birds. They talk, just to me." The goats outside seemed to nod in agreement, bleating softly as if joining the conversation. Clifford chuckled. "Well, I'll be. I've known you a long time, but this is something else." Harry leaned back, feeling a strange mix of amusement and relief. "It makes life less lonely, that's for sure." Clifford nodded thoughtfully. "Maybe it's a sign, Harry. Maybe it's time to open up a little more. Let some people in." Harry looked into the fire, the flickering flames reflecting in his eyes. "Maybe you're right." The room grew quiet, but the soft murmur of voices, both human and animal, lingered in the air, promising that this was only the beginning. The days that followed Clifford's visit felt different to Harry. The forest was still his sanctuary, but now the conversations with his animals brought new color to his quiet life. The goats teased him about his stubbornness, the chickens joked about his old-fashioned ways, and the birds sang little songs just for him. One afternoon, Harry found himself sitting on the porch, watching the sunset bleed orange and pink across the sky. Clifford had stopped by again, bringing stories from the village and news of neighbors Harry hadn't seen in years. "You know, Harry," Clifford said, handing him a cup of strong tea, "it's all right to want company. Even the strongest trees lean on the wind sometimes." Harry grunted, but the words stayed with him. The walls he'd built around himself over the years were strong, but maybe not unbreakable. Later that evening, as the fire crackled and the animals settled around the house, Harry felt a quiet warmth inside. Not just from the flames, but from a growing feeling that maybe, just maybe, he didn't have to face the world alone. The forest whispered around him, alive with voices both old and new. And for the first time in a long while, old Harry smiled, not just at the animals, but at the thought of opening his door to friendship. Chapter 3. A Visitor's Secret. The next morning, a soft mist hung over the forest, wrapping the trees and the little house in a quiet haze. Harry was outside, stacking firewood, when a faint knocking echoed from the porch. He wiped his hands on his coat and opened the door to find Clifford standing there, not alone this time. Behind him stood a young woman with bright eyes and a shy smile. "This is my niece, May," Clifford said warmly. "She's come to stay a while and help out." Harry blinked, surprised. Visitors were rare in his world, and now, with animals talking and a new face at the doorstep, life was getting stranger. and somehow better. May stepped inside, glancing around the cozy house with wonder. "It's beautiful here, Mr. Harry," she said softly. Harry nodded, already feeling the warmth of something new unfolding. May quickly settled into life at the forest house. She wasn't used to the silence, but she found comfort in the rustling leaves and the soft murmur of the animals. Harry, usually reserved and grumpy, found himself sharing small moments of laughter and stories with her. The animals seemed to approve, their chatter growing livelier as if sensing the change. The goats nudged May gently, and the chickens clucked greetings whenever she stepped outside. One evening, as the sun dipped low, May helped Harry gather herbs. "You've taught me a lot about the forest," she said quietly, brushing a stray leaf from her hair. Harry grunted, a rare smile tugging at his lips. "And you remind me, there's more to life than just trees and animals." Their friendship grew steadily, a gentle light breaking through years of solitude. Days turned into weeks, and Harry's world felt fuller than it had in a long time. Clifford still came by. May stayed on, and the animals continued their lively conversations, filling the quiet forest house with warmth and laughter. One evening, as a chill crept into the air, signaling the deepening autumn, Harry found himself sitting on the porch, watching May and Clifford talk by the garden. For the first time, he felt a quiet acceptance growing inside him, a readiness to let others in, even if just a little. The animals gathered nearby, chatting softly about the changing season. Harry listened, a gentle smile on his face. He had learned something important. No matter how strong or independent you think you are, people, and even unexpected friends, are what make life truly rich. And in that small house, deep in the forest, old Harry was no longer alone. Chapter 4. The Harvest Festival approaches. The days grew shorter, and the crisp air of late autumn settled over the forest. Leaves turned fiery red and gold, carpeting the ground in a soft rustle. Inside his wooden house, old Harry felt a warmth that wasn't just from the fire crackling in the hearth. Clifford and May had become fixtures in his life, their presence a comforting rhythm amidst the solitude that had once defined him. One morning, as Harry was tending to his goats, Clifford arrived with a broad smile and a small wooden box. "Guess what, Harry?" Clifford called out. "The village is preparing for the harvest festival next week. Thought you might want to come." Harry squinted, chewing on a stray blade of grass. Festivals were not his thing. The thought of crowds made his chest tighten. "I'm not much for crowds," Harry muttered, stroking his beard. "You know that?" Clifford laughed, clapping him on the shoulder. "It's not just crowds. It's food, music, stories, and good company. May's going too." Harry looked toward the house where May was gathering herbs with the chickens pecking at her feet. The thought of stepping beyond his familiar forest stirred something uneasy, but also curious. "Maybe," Harry said slowly, "maybe I will." The forest seemed to hold its breath, the whispering leaves welcoming the idea of change. For the first time in years, Harry was considering stepping beyond the shelter of his trees and into the world beyond. The next few days were a blur of unusual activity for old Harry. Clifford and May helped him prepare for the festival, which felt both exciting and unnerving. Harry wasn't used to thinking about anything beyond his daily chores, let alone attending a village event. May carefully packed a small basket with homemade herbal teas and a few fresh eggs from the chickens. "People will like these," she said with a hopeful smile. Clifford, ever the organizer, made sure Harry's old boots were cleaned and his coat patched where needed. "You're going to look the part of a proper woodsman," he joked. Despite himself, Harry found the preparations warming something inside, a nervous anticipation that reminded him of younger days. The forest whispered around them, as if sharing in the secret. On the evening before the festival, Harry sat on his porch watching the stars emerge through the thinning canopy. The animals were unusually quiet, almost as if they understood the significance of the coming day. The goats nestled close, the chickens roosted nearby, and the birds sang a soft lullaby as the night deepened. Harry sipped his tea, feeling the weight of solitude lifting, replaced by something lighter: hope. The morning of the harvest festival dawned bright and clear. The forest around Harry's house seemed to hold its breath as he and his small group made their way down the winding path toward the village. Clifford chatted easily, pointing out familiar landmarks, while May walked quietly beside Harry, offering steady companionship. As they entered the village square, Harry's eyes widened. Stalls lined the streets, bursting with colourful produce, baked goods, and handcrafted trinkets. The air was filled with laughter, music, and the rich smell of roasting chestnuts. Old Harry felt a strange flutter in his chest, a mix of excitement and nervousness, but he reminded himself he wasn't alone. The animals had given him courage, and his friends were by his side. Clifford grinned, clapping Harry on the back. "See? Not so bad, is it?" May nodded, her eyes sparkling. "It's a new beginning, Harry." Throughout the evening, Harry tasted warm apple cider, listened to folk songs, and even shared a few stories of his forest life. The villagers welcomed him warmly, fascinated by his quiet strength and unusual friends. By night's end, Harry sat by the fire, surrounded by laughter and light. The world beyond the forest wasn't so frightening after all. As the stars glittered overhead, old Harry realized that sometimes opening your door is the first step to opening your heart. Chapter 5. Returning home, changed. The walk back to the forest was quiet, but filled with a new kind of peace. Harry moved slower now, not just because of his old knees, but because his mind wandered freely. The village lights faded behind them, swallowed by the thick trees, but something inside him stayed bright. Clifford and May chatted softly about the festival, the foods they loved, the songs they heard, the faces they met. Harry listened more than he spoke, content to absorb the warmth of their voices. When they reached the house, the animals greeted them eagerly. The goats nudged their heads against Harry's legs, and the chickens circled their feet in happy clucks. Harry smiled, a real smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. He sat on the porch, looking up at the dark canopy above, feeling less alone than ever. "Maybe," he said quietly to the night, "maybe this life isn't just about surviving alone. Maybe it's about living with others." The forest whispered softly around him, a gentle lullaby for the old man who had finally learned to open his door. The next morning dawned clear and crisp, with the scent of wet leaves and wood smoke filling the air. Harry woke feeling lighter, as if a weight he hadn't known he carried had been lifted. He moved through his routines with a different rhythm. Chopping wood felt less like a chore, tending the goats was a quiet joy, and even gathering herbs seemed richer somehow. May joined him in the garden, humming softly as she worked beside the chickens. Clifford stopped by often, bringing news and laughter. Together they began planting new herbs and flowers around the house, little touches that brightened the place and promised growth. For the first time in years, Harry felt part of something bigger than his solitude, a small community of friends, animals, and the forest itself. And as the sun set, casting long shadows through the trees, Harry sat on his porch, sipping tea, surrounded by life he'd once thought he could live without. Chapter 6. A quiet evening. As autumn deepened, the forest around old Harry's house became a tapestry of warm colors, reds, oranges, and golds blending softly in the fading light. The air was cooler now, and the scent of damp earth and wood smoke filled the quiet evenings. One particular night, Harry sat on his porch with a steaming cup of herbal tea. The goats rested nearby, and the chickens had already settled into their roosts. The sky was clear, stars twinkling faintly through the branches. Harry breathed deeply, feeling the calm of the moment seep into his bones. His life, once defined by solitude and hard routine, had softened into something richer, filled with unexpected friendships and gentle voices. He smiled as he heard a faint rustle in the bushes. A small deer stepped cautiously into the clearing, its eyes wide and calm. Harry didn't move, he simply watched, feeling a quiet connection to the wild creature. The deer seemed to nod, as if acknowledging Harry's place in the forest. In that peaceful silence, old Harry understood something simple and profound. Belonging isn't just about people. It's about connection, to the earth, to animals, to moments of stillness. The deer lingered for a moment, then gracefully melted back into the shadows of the trees. Harry remained seated, letting the quiet wrap around him like a soft blanket. His animals, sensing the stillness, settled even deeper into calm. The goats softly munched on hay, and the chickens softly clucked a gentle lullaby. Harry's thoughts drifted to the lessons he'd learned, not just about speaking animals or the kindness of friends, but about the forest itself, how it taught patience, resilience, and the quiet strength found in acceptance. Clifford's words echoed in his mind. Even the strongest trees lean on the wind sometimes. Harry nodded slowly, feeling a peace that had once seemed impossible. As the stars traced slow paths across the sky, old Harry finally allowed himself to rest, not just in body, but in spirit. The forest, his home, his friends, and now his heart, all were one. Chapter 7. The Forest's Quiet Secrets. The early morning mist hung thick between the ancient trees, softening the edges of the forest like a pale veil. Old Harry stepped out of his wooden house, the familiar creak of the porch beneath his boots, comforting as ever. The garden was damp with dew, the scent of wet earth and herbs filling the cool air. He paused, breathing deeply, letting the fresh forest air settle into his lungs. Autumn was fully settling in now, the leaves crunched beneath his feet, a steady rhythm that matched the quiet beating of his heart. Harry's hands, rough and scarred from years of labor, reached for his basket. Today was for gathering. Not just any herbs, but the special roots and barks the forest offered in this season. Medicine for the cold months ahead. As he moved slowly through the woods, the familiar voices of his animals echoed softly behind him. The chickens clucked softly from the yard, and the goats followed at a gentle pace, their bleats punctuating the calm. The forest, alive with muted colors and whispers, seemed to watch over him. Harry felt a deep sense of belonging, a thread weaving him tighter into this place that had once been merely shelter. Suddenly, a sharp, cheerful voice broke the stillness. "Harry, wait up!" Clifford appeared through the trees, breathless but smiling, carrying a bundle of freshly harvested apples. "I thought you might like some company," Clifford said, brushing leaves from his coat. Harry grunted, but felt a smile tug at his lips. "You're a stubborn one, you know that?" Clifford laughed, stepping beside him. "Someone's got to keep you from talking only to the goats." The two men moved together, picking herbs and sharing stories, their voices blending with the sounds of the forest, creating a harmony that felt like home. As the sun climbed higher, casting dappled light through the canopy, Harry thought about how much had changed in the past weeks. The quiet loneliness was fading, replaced by connection, laughter, and a new kind of peace. Later, May joined them, carrying a small basket filled with wildflowers and freshly baked bread. She smiled warmly at Harry, who returned it with a nod. "Looks like we're becoming quite the forest family," she said softly. Harry nodded, feeling something gentle bloom inside, a hope he hadn't known he needed. The day stretched ahead, full of simple tasks and quiet moments, each one weaving together the threads of a life richer than he'd ever imagined. As the sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows between the trees, Harry, Clifford, and May gathered around the fire pit near the house. The flames flickered warmly, sending sparks into the cool evening air, while the animals settled close by, their soft sounds blending with the crackling fire. Harry took a deep breath, the scent of burning wood mingling with the earthy aroma of herbs May had brought to dry. Clifford handed him a cup of steaming tea, the warmth seeping into his cold fingers. "Remember the time we got lost chasing those wild berries?" Clifford asked, grinning. "You swore you'd never follow me again." Harry chuckled, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "I still say you led me into a thicket of thorns on purpose." May laughed softly. "You two are like an old married couple." The conversation drifted easily, stories unfolding like threads weaving through the night. Harry shared tales of his younger days, hard winters, unexpected kindnesses from strangers, and the quiet magic of the forest. May spoke of her dreams beyond the village, and Clifford joked about city folk who couldn't handle a day outside their shops. With each story, Harry felt his walls soften, the years of solitude melting into the warmth of friendship. The animals, as if sensing the moment, quieted their chatter, leaning in as if listening. When the fire was low and stars speckled the sky, Harry looked around at his companions, human and animal alike, and felt a profound gratitude. This was more than companionship. It was belonging. He raised his cup in a quiet toast. To the forest, to friends, and to new beginnings. Clifford and May smiled, lifting their cups in return. The night wrapped them in its calm embrace, and old Harry, once so guarded and alone, finally felt at peace. The fire had burned low to glowing embers when a sudden breeze stirred the leaves overhead, carrying soft whispers that seemed to dance on the night air. Harry leaned back in his chair, listening intently. The forest was alive with sounds, some familiar, some strange. "Do you hear that?" May whispered, her eyes wide in the firelight. Clifford nodded slowly. "The forest speaks, if you know how to listen." Harry smiled, a deep, knowing smile. "It's always been speaking. I just never took the time to hear it." The animals shifted closer, their quiet voices joining the symphony of night sounds. The goats bleated softly, the chickens clucked a rhythmic tune, and somewhere a night bird called. Harry's thoughts wandered to the lessons the forest had taught him: patience, openness, and the courage to let others in. For so long he had guarded his heart like a fortress. Now, surrounded by friends and the gentle presence of nature, those walls felt unnecessary. He closed his eyes and let the whispers wash over him. Stories of the trees, the animals, and the quiet magic that lived in the spaces between. The night stretched on, peaceful and infinite. And old Harry, the grumpy old man who once lived alone in the woods, finally understood what it meant to belong. Chapter 8. The First Snow. The forest had begun to slow down, settling into the deep quiet of late autumn. The vibrant reds and golds faded into browns and bare branches. Mornings were colder now, with frost sparkling on the grass and the scent of wood smoke curling from chimneys far beyond Harry's little house. One early morning, Harry stepped outside and felt the first light flakes of snow drift down, soft and silent. The world around him transformed into a muted palette of whites and greys. The forest hushed beneath its new blanket. Harry's breath rose in gentle clouds as he looked out over the garden. The goats huddled close, their warm breaths steaming in the cold air, while the chickens clustered under the porch eaves for shelter. He pulled his coat tighter and began his morning routine with a new sense of care. The cold meant more work, feeding the animals, chopping extra wood, tending to the herbs inside, but Harry felt strangely energized. Clifford and May stopped by later that day, both wrapped in thick scarves, their cheeks flushed from the crisp air. "Looks like winter's coming early," Clifford said, brushing snow from a branch. May smiled. "I love the snow. It makes the forest feel magical." Harry nodded, watching the flakes swirl around them. "There's something quiet about this time of year. Makes you think." They settled inside the warm kitchen, the fire roaring in the hearth, sharing tea and plans for the coming weeks. The animals gathered near, their soft noises adding to the peaceful hum of the house. Outside, the snow continued to fall, wrapping the forest in silence and promise. The days grew shorter and colder, and the snow began to settle thickly on the forest floor, muffling footsteps and softening the world into gentle white shapes. Inside his wooden house, old Harry worked steadily, chopping and stacking firewood by the hearth, making sure there was enough to last through the long, cold nights. May and Clifford were frequent visitors now, their laughter and presence filling the small space with warmth. May had taken to weaving little wreaths of dried herbs and flowers to hang around the house, while Clifford shared stories of village life, sometimes exaggerating just enough to make Harry shake his head with a grin. The goats adapted well to the season, their thick coats keeping them warm as they nibbled on hay stored carefully for the winter. The chickens stayed close to the porch, huddling beneath the eaves, their feathers puffed against the cold. One afternoon, Harry found himself standing by the window, watching the snow swirl outside, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. He realized how much his life had changed, from a solitary man to someone surrounded by friends, both human and animal. He caught May's eye across the room and smiled. "Never thought I'd say this, but I'm looking forward to winter." May's eyes sparkled. "There's magic in every season, Harry." As the fire crackled, Harry felt the truth of that in his bones. The forest, the animals, the friends. It was all part of a life he'd come to cherish deeply. And no matter how harsh the winter might be, he knew he would not face it alone. As the evening settled in, the forest outside Harry's house became a canvas of deep blues and silvery whites. The moon hung low, casting a pale glow on the snow-covered branches, turning the world into a quiet, shimmering dream. Harry sat near the hearth, a thick blanket over his knees and a warm mug in his hands. The fire's orange light danced across the wooden walls, casting gentle shadows that flickered like old memories. The animals, now calm and nestled, added their soft presence to the room, gentle rustles from the goats and the occasional cluck from the chickens, all blending into the peaceful atmosphere. Harry's thoughts drifted back over the months, the strange day when the animals first spoke, Clifford's visits, May's arrival, and the slow unraveling of his solitude. The lessons he had learned, the walls he had let down, and the unexpected joy that had seeped into his life. He looked outside once more, watching the snowflakes float silently to the ground. The forest was asleep but alive, just like him. A soft voice in his mind, the voice of one of his chickens, whispered, "You're never truly alone, Harry." Harry smiled, a genuine quiet smile that reached his eyes. "No," he said softly, "never alone." The night deepened around the little house in the woods, filled with warmth, friendship, and the promise of many more days to come. Chapter 9. A winter's morning. The morning sun peeked over the horizon, casting a pale pink light across the snow-blanketed forest. Old Harry stirred awake, the warmth from the fire fading into the crisp cold air that seeped through the cracks of his wooden house. Outside, the world was still and silent, the thick snow muffling every sound except the soft crunch of hooves and feet on frozen ground. The goats were already up, their breaths misting in the cold air as they waited patiently by the door for their morning feed. Harry wrapped himself in his thickest coat and stepped outside, the chill biting at his cheeks. The familiar comfort of his routines welcomed him, filling the trough with fresh water, scattering hay for the animals, and checking the garden's hardy winter herbs still peeking through the snow. Clifford arrived soon after, carrying a bundle of firewood over his shoulder. His cheeks were red from the cold, but his smile was warm and steady. "Morning, Harry," Clifford called, setting the wood down with a thud. "Thought you might need some help today." Harry grunted in thanks, appreciating the gesture more than he let on. May followed shortly, her breath visible in the frosty air, a basket of freshly baked bread in hand. She handed Harry a warm loaf, her eyes bright despite the cold. "Thought this might help start the day right," she said softly. Harry nodded, touched by the kindness. "You two make this winter a lot easier." Together they prepared the house and animals for the day, their quiet teamwork a testament to how far Harry had come from the lonely man he once was. With the morning chores done, the trio settled inside Harry's cozy kitchen. The fire roared, casting dancing shadows on the wooden walls, while the scent of fresh bread and herbal tea filled the air. May sliced the bread, passing generous pieces around, and Clifford settled into a worn chair with a mischievous grin. "So, Harry," Clifford began, "what's the most unusual thing you've ever seen out here in the forest?" Harry chuckled, the sound deep and warm. "Besides talking animals? Well, there was that one winter years ago when a fox followed me all day, like it had a secret mission." May leaned forward, eyes wide. "A secret mission?" Harry nodded, smiling. "It led me to a hidden patch of wintergreen, helped me make a stronger tea to fight a bad cold." Clifford laughed. "Maybe the forest has its ways of taking care of its own." The conversation flowed easily, stories weaving between them like the snowflakes drifting outside. Each tale carried a warmth that melted the chill, knitting their friendship tighter. Outside, the animals rested quietly, their soft murmurs a comforting backdrop. As the day faded into evening, Harry felt a quiet gratitude settle over him. The forest, once a place of solitude, had become a place of stories, laughter, and unexpected warmth. As twilight deepened, the forest outside faded into a dark silhouette against the glowing embers in the hearth. The snow-covered branches sparkled faintly under the silver light of the moon, and the quiet settled like a gentle blanket over the world. Harry sat by the fire, wrapped in a thick woolen blanket, his hands wrapped around a warm mug of tea. May and Clifford had retired to their rooms, leaving him with the soft crackle of the flames and the distant comforting sounds of his animals settling for the night. He gazed out the frosted window at the peaceful landscape, a world transformed, yet the same forest that had sheltered him for so many years. Tonight it felt different, full of promise. Harry's thoughts drifted to the friends he had made, the lessons he'd learned, and the quiet strength that had grown within him. The forest's whispers were no longer just sounds. They were a language he understood, a song of belonging and hope. He closed his eyes, breathing in the stillness. "No longer alone," he whispered. And as the night deepened, old Harry finally let himself rest, calm, content, and embraced by the world he loved. Chapter 10. A New Year Dawns. Winter began to loosen its grip, and subtle signs of change stirred beneath the snow-covered forest floor. Old Harry awoke to a pale sunlight filtering through the frost-covered window panes, casting soft patterns across the wooden floor. The air was crisp, but carried a faint promise of spring. The animals stirred quietly, sensing the gradual shift in season. Even the forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the first thaw. Harry wrapped his worn coat around him and stepped outside. The crunch of snow beneath his boots was steady and familiar, grounding him in the moment. Clifford was already waiting by the gate, a basket brimming with fresh vegetables and bundles of twigs for kindling. May followed close behind, carrying jars of honey and preserves. "Looks like winter's finally starting to loosen up," Clifford remarked, his breath rising in a cloud of steam. May smiled warmly, and with it, new beginnings. Harry nodded slowly, feeling the weight of the past months lift slightly. The long quiet of winter had taught him much: patience, resilience, and the value of companionship. Today was not just another day in the forest, it was the start of something new. Together they planned for the coming months, preparing the garden, tending the animals, and sharing hopes for the future. As the sun climbed higher, warming the frosted branches, Harry felt a quiet excitement blossom within him. The forest was waking up, and so was he. Days grew longer, and the sun's warmth began to coax the forest from its winter sleep. Buds appeared on branches, delicate and tentative, while the first wildflowers pushed through the softening earth. The air was alive with the songs of returning birds, their melodies weaving through the trees like threads of joy. Old Harry moved with renewed energy. His mornings began earlier, filled with planting seeds in the garden and repairing fences worn by snow and time. May and Clifford were constant companions, their laughter and chatter echoing through the forest like a gentle song. One afternoon, Harry sat on the porch, watching the animals play in the sun-dappled yard. The goats butted heads playfully, while the chickens pecked at fresh sprouts. The forest seemed to hum with life. "Feels like the world's starting over," May said softly, settling beside him with a basket of fresh herbs. Harry nodded, feeling the truth in her words. "And maybe so are we." Clifford joined them, carrying a basket of wild berries. "Here's to new beginnings, and the friends who make them possible." They shared a quiet smile, knowing the forest had changed them all. As spring unfurled its promise, old Harry felt a deep peace settle over him. The long journey from solitude to connection had come full circle. Not with grand gestures, but through small moments of kindness, laughter, and trust. The forest was alive, and so was he. Spring deepened, and the forest blossomed into a vibrant tapestry of greens and colors. Old Harry found himself waking with the birds, the soft morning light filling his small wooden house with warmth and promise. Each day brought new tasks, new joys, and a growing sense of belonging he had never known before. The garden thrived under their care. May's gentle hands nurtured young seedlings, while Clifford built sturdy fences to keep the goats safe. Harry, once content with solitude, now found fulfillment in shared work and quiet companionship. One evening, as the sun dipped low behind the trees, the three friends gathered on the porch. The air was sweet with the scent of blooming flowers, and the animals rested nearby, content and calm. Harry looked at Clifford and May, his heart full. "I used to think I could live alone forever," he said quietly. "But the forest has taught me something different, that life is richer when shared." May smiled softly. "We all need a place to belong." Clifford nodded. "And people to share it with." The animals stirred gently, their voices blending with the evening breeze. Harry listened, feeling the circle complete. The quiet man who had once lived in solitude was now part of a living, breathing community. The forest held them all, ancient and steady, a reminder that even the oldest trees grow new leaves in spring. Old Harry smiled, at peace with the world and himself. Chapter 11. Unexpected Visitors. Spring had settled fully over the forest, bathing the trees in lush green and filling the air with the scent of blooming flowers and fresh earth. Old Harry was busy repairing a fence when a sudden sound caught his attention, a crunching of footsteps on the soft forest floor, faster and less cautious than usual. He paused, squinting through the leaves, and saw two figures approaching along the winding path, a woman and a young boy, both carrying bundles of firewood. Harry's first instinct was surprise. Visitors rarely found their way to his secluded home, especially without Clifford or May. The woman, noticing Harry's curious gaze, smiled warmly. "Good morning, sir. We're from the village nearby. We heard about your garden and hoped you might share some advice." The boy nodded shyly, clutching a small wooden box. "I'm Tom," he said softly. "I like helping with plants." Harry studied them quietly, sensing something genuine in their presence. For a moment, the old man considered turning them away. Old habits die hard, but something in their eyes stirred a new feeling. "Come in then," Harry said gruffly, stepping aside. "There's always room for a bit of company." As they crossed the porch, the chickens clucked welcomingly, and the goats watched with mild curiosity. Harry felt a subtle shift. His quiet life was opening once more, inviting new stories and unexpected friendships. Inside the warm wooden house, the fire crackled softly as Harry, the woman, named Eliza, and young Tom settled around the kitchen table. May had just arrived with a basket of freshly baked bread, her smile brightening the room. Eliza unwrapped a bundle of wildflowers and herbs. "We've heard about your knowledge of the forest," she said, her voice gentle but confident. "Our village garden has struggled this year, and we hoped you might share some of your wisdom." Harry nodded slowly, feeling a familiar pride mixed with humility. He looked at Tom, who was already eager to talk about planting seeds and watching them grow. As the afternoon light faded, stories were exchanged, of village life, forest lore, and the simple magic of growing things. Tom's eyes shone with excitement as Harry explained how to nurture delicate seedlings and recognize medicinal herbs. Clifford joined them later, carrying a basket of freshly picked vegetables, his cheerful presence completing the circle of friendship. By evening, the visitors were helping with chores, gathering firewood, tending animals, and preparing a shared meal. The house, once a quiet retreat, now hummed with the energy of community. Harry realized that life, like the forest, thrived on connection. The roots dug deep, intertwining beneath the surface, strengthening all who called this place home. Days passed quickly as Eliza and Tom settled into life by the forest's edge. Harry found himself enjoying their company more than he expected. The house buzzed with new energy, the children's laughter mixing with the gentle clucks of chickens and the soft bleats of goats. Tom was a quick learner, eager to help with everything from planting to caring for the animals. Harry took pride in passing down knowledge, watching the boy's confidence grow like the garden's first sprouts. Eliza's presence was a balm to the household. Her easy smile and practical hands fit naturally into the rhythms of forest life. May and Clifford welcomed her warmly, their friendship weaving seamlessly into the growing community. One evening, as the sun dipped below the treetops, the group gathered around the fire pit. Stories were shared, plans made for the coming months, and laughter floated freely in the crisp air. Harry looked around at the faces lit by firelight, the friends he had chosen, and the unexpected family he'd found. He felt a quiet joy well up inside him, a deep certainty that this was where he belonged. The forest, once a place of solitude, had become a home in every sense. Chapter 12. The Whispering Woods. With the warmth of early summer settling over the forest, old Harry felt a renewed energy buzzing through the trees. The garden bloomed vibrantly, wildflowers dancing beside cultivated herbs, and the animals thrived in the sun-drenched days. One afternoon, as the sun filtered through the leaves in dappled patterns, Harry set off on a familiar walk through the woods, accompanied by Clifford and May. The three moved slowly along the mossy path, the sounds of birdsong and rustling leaves wrapping around them like a soft melody. Suddenly, May stopped, her eyes fixed on a patch of bluebells shimmering gently in the breeze. "Look at these," she whispered. "They say the bluebell woods are where the forest spirits linger." Harry chuckled softly. "Forest spirits, huh? I suppose after all this time I'd better start believing." Clifford grinned. "Maybe they've been watching you all along." The trio settled by a fallen log, sharing stories and soaking in the quiet magic of the woods. Harry felt the deep connection to the forest, his friends, and the simple wonder of the world around him. As twilight crept in, the air seemed to hum with secrets, the trees whispering tales older than time. For old Harry, the woods had become not just a home, but a living story he was part of. A story still unfolding. As the evening deepened, the forest around them grew quieter, the chatter of daytime creatures giving way to the soft calls of owls and the rustling of small animals in the underbrush. Harry, Clifford, and May remained seated on the fallen log, their faces bathed in the golden glow of the fading sun. May leaned forward, her voice barely above a whisper. "There's an old tale about these woods. They say that if you listen carefully, the trees will share their secrets. Stories of those who came before us." Harry glanced up at the towering trunks, their bark rough and ancient. "I've spent years here, and I swear, sometimes I hear more than just wind." Clifford nodded thoughtfully. "Maybe that's the forest reminding us we're never truly alone." A gentle breeze stirred the bluebells nearby, their delicate petals shimmering in the twilight. Harry reached out, brushing a hand lightly over the flowers, feeling a strange warmth spread through him. For the first time, the stories felt real, not just old legends, but a living truth woven into the very fabric of the forest. As night fell and stars began to twinkle above, Harry felt a peaceful certainty settle over him. The woods were more than trees and animals. They were keepers of memory, guardians of life, and friends in their own quiet way. With a soft smile, he settled back against the log, ready to listen to whatever whispers the night would bring. The stars now blanketed the sky, casting a silvery light over the forest clearing where Harry, May, and Clifford sat. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of pine and damp earth. Somewhere nearby, a nightbird sang a haunting melody, weaving through the stillness. Harry closed his eyes, letting the quiet wash over him. The gentle rustling of leaves, the soft murmurs of his animal friends settling down for the night, and the whispered secrets of the woods blended into a calming symphony. He thought about how far he'd come, from the solitary man who kept to himself, to the friend, mentor, and caretaker he was now. The forest had taught him patience, connection, and the courage to open his heart. A soft breeze brushed past, as if the trees themselves were sighing in contentment. Opening his eyes, Harry looked at his companions and smiled. "I think I finally understand. The forest isn't just a place, it's a living story we're all part of." May nodded, her eyes bright. "And it's up to us to listen and add our own chapters." Clifford laughed quietly. "Well, I hope our story has a few more adventures left." The fire's embers glowed warmly between them, a beacon in the dark. Old Harry felt a deep peace settle within him, an acceptance of the past, gratitude for the present, and hope for the future. The woods whispered around them, their timeless song carrying on into the night. Chapter 13. The Garden's Gift. Spring had blossomed fully, wrapping the forest in vibrant greens and colourful blooms. The garden that Harry, May, and Clifford had nurtured over the months now burst with life, rows of herbs, vegetables, and flowers stretching toward the sun. Harry took pride in the garden's success, tending each plant with care and patience. The animals grazed nearby, their contentment echoing the harmony of the place. One morning, as Harry worked among the tomato plants, Clifford appeared carrying a basket filled with freshly picked wild mushrooms. "Looks like the forest is giving us plenty this year," Clifford said, grinning. May joined them, her hands fragrant with lavender. "There's something special about growing your own food," she said softly. "It connects you to the earth in a way nothing else can." Harry nodded, feeling the truth of her words deep in his bones. "It's more than survival. It's life." As the sun climbed higher, they shared plans for preserving the harvest and preparing for the seasons ahead. The garden was more than a source of food. It was a symbol of growth, friendship, and hope. The forest around them whispered softly, a gentle reminder that life, like the trees and flowers, always finds a way to flourish. The afternoon sun bathed the garden in a warm glow as Harry, May, and Clifford worked side by side, their hands busy with soil and seeds. The rhythmic motion of planting and tending was soothing, a meditation of sorts that brought them closer to the land and each other. May paused, wiping sweat from her brow. You know, Harry, gardens are like people. They need care, patience, and sometimes a little pruning to grow strong. Harry chuckled, digging a small hole for a seedling. I guess I'm learning that the hard way. Clifford laughed. You've come a long way from the grumpy old man who talked to his goats. Harry grinned. Yeah, well, they talk back. Can't say the same about most people. May smiled warmly. Maybe they're just waiting for you to listen. As they worked, Harry found himself reflecting on his own growth. The walls he'd lowered, the friendships he'd forged, and the lessons the forest had taught him. The garden was a living testament to change, resilience, and hope. By the time the sun dipped low, casting golden hues over the land, the trio stood back to admire their work. Rows of young plants swayed gently in the breeze, promising a bountiful future. Harry felt a quiet satisfaction settle over him. In the garden, in the forest, and in his heart, life was growing, steady, strong, and full of promise. As dusk settled over the forest, the three friends gathered once more on the porch of Harry's wooden house. The sky was painted in shades of pink and purple, the last light filtering through the trees and casting long shadows over the garden they had nurtured together. Harry settled into his favorite rocking chair, a steaming cup of tea in hand. The animals had come close, resting quietly nearby, their familiar sounds creating a comforting backdrop. May leaned against the porch railing, her eyes reflecting the fading light. It's amazing, isn't it? How something as simple as a garden can teach us so much. Clifford nodded, tossing a small stick to one of the goats. It's like life itself. You plant seeds, you tend them, and you hope for the best. Harry sighed, a content smile tugging at his lips. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm grateful. For the garden, for the friends, for the forest. May smiled softly. We all need roots, Harry. Places and people to grow with. As the stars began to twinkle overhead, Harry felt a deep peace settle within him. The journey from solitude to connection had been long, but now, surrounded by life and friendship, he was home. The forest whispered its ancient lullaby, and old Harry, once alone and guarded, finally rested, full of hope, belonging, and quiet joy. Chapter 14. Summer's Warmth. Summer arrived softly, the forest bursting into vibrant life under the warm sun. The days stretched longer, filled with golden light and the hum of busy insects. Old Harry found himself waking earlier, the scent of wildflowers and fresh earth greeting him as he stepped outside. The garden flourished, bursting with ripe tomatoes, fragrant herbs, and tall sunflowers that seemed to smile at the sky. The animals thrived in the warmth, their coats glossy and their spirits high. Harry, May, and Clifford worked together seamlessly, their days marked by shared chores, quiet laughter, and the simple joy of living close to the land. One afternoon, as a gentle breeze stirred the leaves, May pointed to a cluster of butterflies fluttering over the wildflowers. Summer always feels like magic to me, she said softly, like the forest is alive in a way you can almost touch. Harry smiled, nodding. There's a kind of peace here, isn't there? Like the world slows down just enough for you to catch your breath. Clifford laughed, and just when you think you've caught it, a goat comes running through and reminds you who's boss. They all laughed, the sound carrying through the trees like a bright melody. As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows over the forest floor, Harry felt a deep gratitude. The quiet man who once lived alone in the woods had found something richer than solitude, a life full of warmth, friendship, and belonging. As summer deepened, the village prepared for its annual Festival of Light, a celebration marking the longest days of the year, filled with music, dancing, and glowing lanterns that lit the night like stars brought to earth. Clifford was eager for Harry to join them, insisting it was time the old woodsman reconnected with the community beyond the forest. May smiled gently, supporting the idea, knowing how much Harry had changed since the first day they met. Harry was hesitant at first. Crowds and noise had never been his comfort zone, but the thought of sharing this tradition with friends gave him courage. On the evening of the festival, Harry donned his best coat, patched but clean, and stepped onto the path with Clifford and May by his side. The animals watched from the porch, their quiet voices wishing him well. The village square was alive with colour and sound. Lanterns swayed in the breeze, music floated through the air, and laughter echoed beneath the summer sky. Harry found himself smiling, the warmth of friendship and celebration filling the space where loneliness once lived. He joined in the dancing, clumsy but joyful, the rhythm carrying away years of solitude. As lanterns rose into the night, carrying wishes and hopes, Harry realized that life's true light came not just from flames, but from connection. In that moment, beneath the stars and surrounded by friends, old Harry felt fully alive. After the dancing slowed and the last lanterns floated high into the dark sky, Harry, Clifford, and May found a quiet spot near the edge of the village. The night was clear and cool, the stars sparkling like scattered diamonds overhead. They settled on the soft grass, the gentle sounds of the festival fading behind them. Harry breathed deeply, the crisp air filling his lungs and calming his restless thoughts. "Funny," he murmured, "how something as simple as light can change the world around you." May smiled, her eyes reflecting the stars. "It's not just the light, Harry. It's the hope that comes with it." Clifford nodded. "And the people who share it with you." Harry looked at his friends, feeling a surge of gratitude and belonging. The forest, the animals, the village, they were all part of this new chapter in his life. He reached out, clasping their hands in a silent promise to keep growing, keep listening, and never close himself off again. As the night deepened, the three friends sat beneath the vast sky, wrapped in warmth, friendship, and the gentle glow of hope. Old Harry's journey, from solitude to belonging, had reached a beautiful moment of peace. Chapter 15. The Turning of Seasons. The forest had settled into the gentle rhythms of late summer, the days growing shorter and the air tinged with a faint promise of change. Old Harry woke early, the soft light filtering through the trees, casting long shadows over the garden he'd helped nurture into fullness. He moved slowly through his morning routine, tending to the animals with care, gathering herbs and vegetables, and sipping his tea on the porch as the world came alive around him. Clifford and May were nearby, preparing for the coming harvest with cheerful energy. The three had become inseparable, a family forged by shared days and quiet understanding. Harry's heart felt light, the weight of years spent alone lifted by the bonds he'd formed. The forest whispered its ancient song, reminding him that life was a cycle of endings and beginnings. As he looked out over the garden, rich and ripe, Harry knew that whatever the future held, he was ready. He was no longer the grumpy, isolated man who once lived alone in the woods. He was a part of something greater, a living story, rooted in friendship, love, and the endless turning of the seasons. The harvest season arrived with a quiet fanfare, the garden bursting with fruits, vegetables, and fragrant herbs ready to be gathered. Harry, May, and Clifford worked side by side, their hands busy with the familiar tasks that felt both timeless and new. The animals, sensing the change, moved with calm purpose. Goats nibbling on late summer grass, chickens pecking eagerly at scattered grains. The air was thick with the scent of earth and ripening produce. One afternoon, as Harry carried a basket heavy with tomatoes and herbs, he paused to watch the sunlight play through the leaves. Memories of his long years of solitude surfaced, moments of loneliness, fear, and stubbornness. But those days felt distant now, softened by the warmth of friendship and the gentle strength of the forest. May approached, her eyes shining. "You've come so far, Harry. The forest isn't just your home anymore, it's ours." Clifford smiled, nodding in agreement. "And whatever comes next, we face it together." Harry's heart swelled with gratitude. He reached out, clasping their hands firmly. "This is the life I never thought I'd have," he said quietly. "Thank you. For everything." The sun dipped low, casting golden light over the garden, the animals, and the friends who had become family. The forest hummed softly around them, a timeless lullaby welcoming the promise of tomorrow. As twilight deepened, the forest seemed to hold its breath, a quiet, sacred moment hanging between the fading light and the coming night. Harry, May, and Clifford gathered once more on the porch, the air filled with the scent of herbs and the gentle murmur of the animals settling for the night. Harry looked out over the land he had come to love, the garden lush and ripe, the animals calm and content, the trees standing tall and steady. He felt a deep sense of peace, a calm that had eluded him for many years. "I never imagined life could be like this," he said softly, his voice steady but full of wonder. "I thought I was meant to be alone." May reached out, placing a hand on his arm. "Sometimes the hardest journeys lead us home." Clifford nodded. "And the best stories are the ones we write together." Harry smiled, the weight of solitude finally lifted from his shoulders. The forest had changed him, but it had also given him something more: a family, a purpose, and a place to belong. The stars emerged overhead, sparkling like distant fires in the night sky. The animals nestled close, their quiet voices blending with the whispering trees. Old Harry leaned back in his chair, breathing in the cool night air. For the first time in a long time, he felt truly at home. And as the forest sang its timeless lullaby, he closed his eyes, ready for whatever new chapters awaited.